All right, let's talk about President Trump's Minnesota U-turn. So I feel like we are seeing, guys, something truly extraordinary and that we've never seen from this president. And I don't want to call it a retreat because that has a negative connotation. And what they're doing is smart. They're reacting to something terrible that happened this weekend and they have to recalibrate and they're starting to do it. But we are starting to see the president himself leading the charge on this complete pivot on ICE and pivot in Minnesota in particular. So a new tone, damage control, whatever you want to call it. Let me just take you through some of it before we jump in. He's distancing himself, or the White House is distancing the president from false rhetoric we heard from Kristi Noem and Stephen Miller, calling this guy, Alex Preddy, an assassin who had an intent to kill agents. Caroline Leavitt in her press conference yesterday very much separated them from what had been said, saying, they don't have the same opinion and that they don't want to see anyone shot and anyone killed. The president has personally extended a hand to Governor Walz and Mayor Fry, who, remember, guys, just a few days ago, the DOJ was subpoenaing them, saying that they were not cooperating and going after them. So huge difference there. He said he had a good conversation with both of them. And of course, there's the meeting today. We'll see how that continues. There's discussion about pulling some agents out of Minneapolis and Minnesota. And the president is clearly looking at a sort of house, I don't want to call it a house cleaning. It's more like a rearranging of the deck chairs, if you will, sidelining Kristi Noem, elevating border czar Tom Homan. And it sounds like they're moving MAGA darling CBP head Gregory Bavino out of Minnesota. Like I said, we've seen reporting that he might be demoted, that his social media account was suspended. This is all, like I said, extremely stunning because we don't often see the president sort of make a total U-turn in a very different direction like he's doing right now, Sean. So let's just start with, how do we get here? What happened between Saturday, when all these admin officials were out there saying this guy was, attacking law enforcement, to what we're seeing right now, which is the president.
Can I just quickly too, just a shout out, because Sean, you yesterday said a series of things that you recommended Trump do, and perhaps he was listening. He did a bunch of them. So we always talk about this show, and like part of the value is you get insight that is hard to get elsewhere. Sean knows the president, and you had a pretty good beat on what he would do. So let me put the ball on the tee for you.
Thank you. Appreciate the ball there. If you've ever watched me play golf, I need you to hit it. Look, I think what made this very different was the circumstances and the response. The response right out of the gate was just ridiculous and horrible. It also really conflated it tied up the conservative world, coming out and accusing somebody of not having the right to carry concealed, who had a permit. And for those of us on the right who actually believe that we should be able to carry concealed without a permit, like this was a complete undermining of conservative values. It was factually inaccurate. It was demonstrably false on numerous ways. I mean, the way that Noem handled this and the blowback that she got. Look, I mentioned this yesterday, but it wasn't just the NRA. It was Jamie Comer. It was, Dave McCormick. These are people who have aligned themselves with President Trump and pumping the brakes and saying, this does not look good. This is not true. This is indefensible. And I, by the way, I will say Caroline was pitch perfect yesterday. She came out, she talked about the Second Amendment. She talked about where that subtle difference was once you put your hands on law enforcement. That's the distinction. So she was pitch perfect on this. The response coming out of DHS was an absolute disaster. And I think that's why Kristi Noem, is facing the consequences. There's a couple of interesting, sort of palace intrigue things. One, go ahead, Dan.
I was just going to say,
let's get the personnel in a minute. Dan, go ahead. You want to jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is it was chaos versus strength, which is to say that Trump, so he was at the White House this weekend. And as Sean, as we've all documented, there was a huge snowstorm. So Sean has said, like, when it's raining at Bedminster and he can't go play golf, like, watch out, because he sits inside and watches television and he can get spun up. I think, Sean, to your point, Trump was watching in real time as his officials said one thing and the images showed another. And by the evening, as we all know, Republicans were going on the record on Fox and other places, beginning to criticize. And he sat there also getting phone calls from people saying, what's going on? Right. And for a guy obsessed with always looking like he's strong and in control, it looked like a chaotic you-know-what show.
Yeah.
And that, I think, to his credit, he recognized we have to make a change because I've lost control of this.
I knew this was going to be different when I saw Maria Bartiromo on Fox News.
Yep.
Super upset about this. And like, she didn't take it easy when Kash Patel came on. She was like, this guy had a camera. Like, he had a camera. And when I saw her reaction to this, I was like, oh, you know who watches her, right? President Donald Trump. And
but the thing that upsets me too is that I try to put myself in the place of what happens in 4, 8, or 10 years from now when a Democrat's in office. What are we going to say? Yeah. And I know it's not always easy in politics, but I do like having the higher ground. And I'm sitting there saying we have always argued on the right that we have a right to do certain things. We have a right to protest. We have a right to carry. And yet here we are claiming that this guy when he put his hands on the agent, that is a different story. But up till that point. Now, one of the people I had on my show yesterday, Betsy Brantner Smith, said, look, we don't know, was he told to clear the area? Maybe that happened before or something. But regardless, had that not happened, standing around and filming some law enforcement is actually protected by the courts. That's been litigated.
Before we get to personnel here, have either of you seen a situation like this? Like, can you think of one where the president, they were moving in a direction and did such a hard pivot on? I can't. Thinking back over the past decade, I don't think we've seen anything.
Well, I mean, you think about something as simple as TikTok, right? I mean, he was all for banning it, and then
and he wasn't.
For sure. Oh, I don't mean just changing policy positions. That happens all the time. But I mean, like, just like this was like the central thing. They were leaning into this much, or at least no one was leaning into it.
I mean, this is a nice segue into personnel because
for sure. Let me just like set the stage for that because he hasn't fired anyone. The president hasn't fired anyone, but clearly he isn't happy. He gave Kristi Noem apparently a 2-hour talking to.
Well, she asked for it. She asked to come in and see him.
Smart on her part, right?
Yeah.
Got to clear the air.
Well, I don't know. That's a jump ball. I don't know when he's upset and I don't know that he was or he wasn't. I'm just saying I generally don't advise going in to the lion's
Well, if you're not making your case in front of him, you sure as hell know someone's, pardon my language, but shitting all over you behind your back to the president, right?
Yeah, but again, that's why I'm saying it's a balance. You have to know the right time to come in and do that.
Okay, so they had this meeting, 2-hour meeting with Susie Wiles, Caroline Leavitt, Stephen Chung. No Stephen Miller, interestingly enough. And then there's the Bovino example, which is, again, just staggering because he's been this sort of MAGA superstar. He had his own film crew who followed him, very much the face of ICE enforcement. Sean, what does this mean for Noem's future, and why did Bovino fall so quickly?
There's two separate things there, right? The first thing is, I will say this, and I speak from personal experience. When you cross the Rubicon of good news to bad news, you never come back in Trump world.
For the president you're talking about. Yeah.
Right. So I can't think of a single instance where somebody went, from good or neutral to bad and then came back. It doesn't happen. I speak from very personal experience on this, and you have to know sort of whether to try to wait it out or to take the nearest off ramp. And I don't see how Noem comes back from this. She was already on thin ice. This was a complete and utter disaster. You have problems, within MAGA world now. You've got the NRA, you've got congressional leaders. And by the way, just one quick note, you've got 145 members of the House saying they're going to impeach her. If you realize that she's bad news, and you're going to get rid of her, you got to get her while we still own the Senate and you can get a new person in. You do not want to have to negotiate over your next DHS secretary. So she crossed the Rubicon.
Out of that.
She crossed the Rubicon, and I don't know how she gets back. But here's the other thing. Homan, on the other hand, has rock solid credentials. He's played his cards smart and tight. Like he has kind of drafted below where it's like he's done his job. He stayed focused. He hasn't gotten a lot of headlines. He does the interviews. Everyone in MAGA loves him and appreciates him and respects what he's done. And like I said, Caroline stood up there yesterday and held up the Washington Post story of President Obama recognizing Tom Homan. That's your get out of jail free card right there. But here's the thing that was interesting. And I'm not trying to pick on you, Rachel, because it was because I think a lot of people would say what you said at the beginning. Greg Bovino, the head of CBP. He's not the head of CBP.
No, I know.
Right. No. but
He's
he is
egghead.
perceived as the head of CBP. Why?
Yeah.
He is a sector patrol guy. He runs the El Centro sector. He was given this title of commander at large because he was in Nome's orbit. He's very well liked by Nome.
Right.
Well, Nome and Homan, oil and
Gosh.
water. Okay,
Yep.
so what's Homan's first act? Get the Nome people out. And he
Yep.
says, okay, you can go back to your sector, but you're not commander at large anymore. You're not running this. Who is the head of CBP? Rodney Scott.
Not
Where's
a name
Rodney?
you've heard at all.
Right.
At all in the headlines.
Why is the civilian head of CBP not the face of CBP right now? Maybe, just a guess, because he's Homan aligned and he's not in with Nome. I mean, this is the sort of interesting dynamic that's happening right now. It is a little odd to not see the head of CBP and yet to see a civilian, a government bureaucrat agent as becoming the face of this. Now, here's the last thing I'll say with Trump on personnel. One of the greatest things about working for Donald Trump is that he gives you a very long leash to do your job. You don't need to go in. He doesn't micromanage you. His answer is, are you doing your job? Are you getting results? Bam, that's it. Great. Go do more. I mean, he is a great guy to work for in that respect. The downside is he gives you a long leash. So for the same exact reason, you go out there like Greg Bovino and suddenly, for a while he was surfing that wave. No one could touch him. The second that the wave crests and you start to fall off the wave, you're out. And that's the upside and the downside. And Bovino, I think, got a little too close to the sun. He was close to Nome. And for those reasons, he's out.
Just one quick note about Rodney Scott. There is some reporting in the Washington Examiner, conservative-leaning paper, saying that Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski, that there was effectively a bullying sort of thing happening internally where he was sidelined, that they suggested they were going to go after his allies, try to get them fired, even apparently something with families and children. So it looks like it's been real ugly over at DHS.
And that's, by the way, that I will just, without getting further, that's not the first official that's had that would say that that's been the case.
And this is where it goes to, which is for really the first time in 2.0, we are beginning to see the stories of the internal fighting. That Homan had one point of view and his deputies about a more methodical and kind of measured approach to immigration. Even stories that Homan doesn't really favor going after the mass illegal population as much as he does the criminals. And that Nome is kind of running a made for TV, made for influencer campaign where they are intentionally looking for action on the street to support her case. If I'm a Democrat, you know what I say? There's no oversight. Like, they're out of control. Again, this goes to chaos for strength. So for Trump, he has got to get this back to the adults are in charge. We have a plan. We're strong and we're tough. Because I said this the last few days, the TV ads right now write themselves for Democrats.
So I will say, I mean, you mentioned this at the top, Rachel. Yesterday's actions by the president, Caroline, et cetera, were perfect. I mean,
I agree about that. Yeah. He had a good day yesterday. All things considered.
They needed to do this.
But here's the deal: when you go study crisis, dealing with the crisis is one thing, getting out of the crisis is quite another. And they did a great job yesterday of acknowledging the problem, not trying to put a Band-Aid on it, not trying to dance around. There were concrete actions. We're sending Tom Homan. He's going to have these meetings. Here are the deliverables. Caroline laid them out. We want Mayor Fry to do this. We want Waltz to do this. They gave a work plan. This is exactly how you deal with a PR crisis. Kudos to the White House for how they did this. And, the funny part is, as I mentioned yesterday, you're coming out of a massive snowstorm over the weekend. So this was not an easy task to have happen.
They can play golf and chew gum. They can navigate a snowstorm and play golf.
But
I know.
There is something to I mean, if you've ever been in that foxhole, to understand you're getting hit by 10, you can only be in so many places at once. And you're getting, hey, we need you in this briefing. We need you in that briefing. We need to be here. And so how they handled this, I think, was excellent.
Yeah.
Let's talk about those deliverables. Yeah. That's the next segment here, what Democrats and Republicans are discussing in terms of ICE changes and how difficult.
Oh, by the way, one quick fun fact. I'm sorry, I had this written down. Do you know where Rodney Scott was a career agent before he was appointed Border Patrol chief?
30 years or something, right?
Yeah.
Something like
Do you want to know where his last assignment was?
Minneapolis.
No. El Centro.
Okay.
That's where Bovino's stationed. So the irony is Pavino is getting sent back to where Rodney Scott was, border chief.
Interesting stuff.
Kind of a little fun fact of the day.
The irony there. Okay, let's talk about the deliverables here. So the president and the White House, as you mentioned, Sean, they've articulated 4 conditions for pulling agents out of Minnesota. One of them, the big one, is basically requiring the state to turn over illegal immigrants in local jails and who are subject to arrest. Basically, work with the Fed to take these guys and get them out. The problem here, though, is that Waltz and Frey are both out there saying they're already doing this. There's a Wall Street Journal op-ed by Waltz saying that federal officials are lying. My state's correctional department honors immigrant detainers. I mean,
but isn't
the question is whether or not that's true or not, because
but regardless of whether it's true, here's my thing. That's a layup. Then say, great. You know what?
Does it make it? That's what I was saying. Does it make it easier? Does it make it harder because they're refusing to even acknowledge a deal?
I think that's the politics of this, which is neither side wants to really look. The way they're going to land this plane is neither side spikes the football in the other side's face. And that is a challenge, because I totally agree with Sean. And we were texting this last night. Trump had a great day yesterday to try to get back control of the crisis. Now the hard part comes, which is the substantive change. And I think, as is Trump's case, he wanted to make sure that, the message was, they called me and here are my conditions, right? So he's playing to his base, again, strength at all times. He doesn't have that much leverage in this, right? That's the thing Democrats know. We have the public and we have momentum on our side. But you got to be careful if you go at the bear too hard that this spirals out of control. So I think the question is, what does Trump get? And to your point, Rachel, they're already doing it. So they don't want to.
Well, just to be clear, there is some devil in that detail.
Sure.
So just to that's again, it's one thing to say, oh, we're kind of helping you from 2 to 4 a.m.
And so I think this is going to be the issue, which is there is the issue of Minnesota. So how, agents coming out, the temperature coming down, perhaps warrants. Then there's the issue of ICE. And what are they going to do with ICE, not just in Minneapolis, but writ large as part of this budget deal? And I think that's where what's different today than we had on Friday, let's say, is the White House and Senate Republicans are openly saying, okay, let's deal. Like we're going to give you some stuff. Now, the question is on our side, can we control our own base that's frothing at the mouth right now and is racing to say who is more to the left on this issue? But I was heartened to hear, as my understanding, that Republicans and Democrats are trading ideas in the Senate right now, including standardizing warrant procedures, all ICE officials wearing body cameras, and the idea of use of force standards being kind of enhanced, let's say. To me, those are smart things that the White House probably gets on board with.
Well, so there's a question about process on that, because Senator Katie Britt from Alabama, she is DHS Approps chair, and she was also sort of at the center of cutting a deal to get out of the last shutdown. She's trying to address these concerns, but she wants to do this outside of a funding package. So basically, Democrats are saying we need to renegotiate the DHS funding package, which is one of 6 appropriations bills that were supposed to come to the floor this week and get cleared to avert a government shutdown. But Democrats, Dan, they're going to have a problem with this because they don't trust this president. And if you want to do it outside of legislation, she's basically saying, let's do some executive orders. The president will sign some executive orders. We'll get this fixed. But Democrats, they're probably not going to buy that, right?
No, and they shouldn't. I mean, this is where Trump has a trust problem. It's not with Democrats. It's with the American people. So if this comes into a showdown of do you trust ICE and Trump, we'll win. So I hear the big argument is they can't get it through the House, right? You send it back to the House. One, they're adjourned, but newsflash, they can be here in 24 hours. They do it all the time when it matters. They totally do. They absolutely can do it. You issue something today. Be ready to be back here by Friday at noon. I mean, it happened when I was up there.
And my answer would be, I'm sorry. I get your point. Sure, they can. But what if I were Johnson, I'd be like, hey, we passed a bill. Sorry.
Okay, so
why don't you
passed
do
the
it
bill,
our way? Which
and
is,
That's
hey,
basically what they are
oh,
doing.
but hold
right
on
now.
a sec, guys. The facts have changed. Again, we have the American people on our side. Sean, does
now.
Mike Johnson want to sit there and say, there was, by the way, Mike Johnson, who was silent for 48 hours, but tweeted a photo and a summary of a meeting with Erica Kirk, but he has not commented on what happened in Minnesota. So Mike Johnson doesn't want to deal with this. We know this. He has the losing hand. So I think the White House, of course, they don't want to reopen the bill because the politics are about to get worse. There's no way that they're, in my opinion, Democrats should squeeze them on this and codify it. And if they don't, I would taunt Republicans and start running ads.
So here's
You're
the
not
deal.
doing your job.
But look, here's
do your job.
You're playing with fire. You've got Secret Service, FEMA, Coast Guard. You want to shut DHS down? You do it at your own peril.
Do your job then. Come back and vote on a new bill. The facts have changed. So here's a new bill.
No, they haven't. Facts are the facts. Why can't you do a site? Wait, why can't you do what Katie Britt suggested? Why can't you say, great, we've already got a funding bill. You want to do legislation to change policy? Do it outside the appropriations process, which is what the authorization process is actually for, Dan. That's the difference.
Would they have enough time to put together another bill? I mean, forget the executive orders. I
Just
get
do an amendment.
that this president will do what he's saying he's going to do. Say, put together another bill and pass it by the week. Still not good enough. Is that what you're saying, Dan?
Of course they can't. Where there's a will, there's a way in Congress. When you don't want to, it's the ultimate bodies to say, the process, travel, it's hard.
I kind of wonder, though, some of this stuff, Sean, I want to get your reaction on some of the Dem demands here. What is realistic and what is not? And because some of this stuff, I imagine there's going to be
Remember,
pushback.
there's two issues at play here. There's the Minneapolis deal,
right?
And then there's the funding deal,
right?
And this is they're two separate things. And the Minneapolis deal is just between Fry. I mean, basically, it's probably more Fry than anything else.
Yeah. No, but there are some ideas that Democrats are pushing here
I know,
in Washington that I imagine you guys wouldn't like, which includes face masks.
That's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen.
Yeah, I was going to say. So one of the ideas.
I love the people who mandated masks and who didn't care when protesters wore them to suddenly say agents have to reveal themselves. I mean, I
can see that being a total no-go with Republicans.
Look, you're always going to ask, like, you ask for 10 things, you get 6, right? I mean, that's just the way this goes.
Really? Part of the deal?
Because, like, what about the this notion of using standard warrant procedure, Sean? That probably can be accepted, I would think, by Republicans when it comes to picking up illegal immigrants.
I mean, J.D. Vance all but said it.
I think that there's again, I think there's got to be some details in there. Like I don't know the answer to that. I think the question would be, are there exceptions to that because you're rolling up the dude who's in flight or something? It's a good question. I think that's probably more for some of their lawyers to say, hey, yes, but in these circumstances.
Yeah. And then the body cams thing. I mean, I feel like there's already been some discussion about this, and Republicans have said they're going to the body cam thing.
Yeah. I'm for, I mean, most apparently, and what I understand, I've asked this question, it's just not mandatory. Some do, some don't. There was a lot of body cam in the Preddy situation.
Right.
I don't know that I mean, that to me probably is something that most people would be for anyway, because it protects the officers when they're, if they're following procedure. I'm surprised, by the way, the one thing that I didn't hear in that list is some kind of, I would have thought the Dems would have been all over some kind of training, de-escalation training required.
I was wondering.
They're talking about that. I mean, I think it's, to be honest, it's so accepted. It's not even like, it's like whatever deal they do, that is going to be a part of it.
And maybe they're leaving this to Mayor Fry, but the other question I had was the investigation of the Alex Preddy killing. Like right now, it sounds like DHS is taking the lead, basically investigating their own colleagues. Noam, who came out in there and said false things about this man, is overseeing that investigation. That seems problematic to me. So I imagine either Mayor Fry or the Democrats on the Hill would be like, okay, we need to bring in the DOJ on this. We want to see, like, law enforcement at the Justice Department take the lead on this investigation or something. I don't know. We'll see.
And
By
I
the way,
think it's
Dan,
not just Minnesota. I think where Democrats are really frustrated is there are all these allegations all over the country of excessive use of force, and they don't want the same body being judge and jury. This is why you have a DOJ, and you're supposed to have independent agencies, doing investigations.
By the way, the one thing that Republicans have done a very bad job on is they've been on their heels, and they need to get out and smoke these Democrats out. Dan and I had this discussion yesterday, and then last night I counted 5 Senate Democrats that said, I don't want to give ICE another dime. And the question is, there's a nuance in there, right? Another dime. Does that mean from what they have in addition to what was in the big, beautiful bill? Is that code word for defunding? To me, it's a weasel word. It's like, I don't want to actually show you, I want to get favor with the base, but I don't want to. I think Republicans would be smart to smoke these guys out and to be like, what do you want? Because right now, Democrats get to claim, like, get favor with the base by saying, I don't want to fund ICE, but then they also get to claim that they're not defunding, like, they're just not additional money.